Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at this tier list that SISQUI has recently made. If you don't know who SISQUI is, he's one of the best players in the entire world, arguably the best Samus in the world, and we're going to be using today's video to find out how the European meta is maybe a little bit different than the NA meta or the Japan meta, and just what they over and undervalue. And let me just get this out of the way. Does SISQUI represent all of Spain and all of Europe for that matter? Well, the short answer to that is yes, he does. And this is ordered within the tier. Starting off, you're going to have bottom one with Ganondorf alone in that tier. That is correct. Then we're going to move on to the low tier. And I don't have too many problems with the low tier. I never really do, just because it doesn't really matter who's the second worst character in the game and the fourth worst character in the game. Like, do I think DDD's the second worst? Probably not. Do I care? Also, probably not. The only character that I actually majorly change in this tier would be Richter. I do think that he's a little bit too low. This is a very polarizing character because Richter's strengths are super strong. The ledge trapping, the neutral could be very annoying. If you are very precise with this character, you can actually get some pretty crazy conversions. But the disadvantage state is awful, and once the opponent kind of smothers Richter, it is very difficult for him to kind of escape that scenario. So I could definitely see him being in the low tier. I would have him at the bottom of mid tier, but I definitely wouldn't have him on the lower end of the low tier, you know? I also think it's pretty interesting where Dr. Mario and Little Mac are, because when you look at the start of Smash Ultimate, even till more recently, these characters were always in the bottom three, but I definitely don't think that's true anymore. Maybe Little Mac is still a little bit high because this character doesn't have an aerial game in Smash Ultimate where aerials are very important, but for Dr. Mario, he hits like a truck. He has some really solid conversions. He has an amazing X Factor, and Little Mac also has one of the best X Factors in the game with KO Punch, so honestly, I'm kind of fine with these placements. And then the final adjustment that I would make with the low tier is I would move K. Rool to the top of it. But overall, good start. Next up is going to be the mid tier, and my first problem is the first character in this tier, and that is going to be Ike. I think Ike is a garbage character. He's very linear. Yes, he does hit you hard, but that comes with a lack of combos. Like, you're not taking more than 30-40% from an Ike interaction, and that's just really not enough in current day Ultimate. The character's disadvantage is also really bad. If he has to up B, he's probably going to die, and I just think Ike is trash, so I would move him somewhere in the middle of that low tier. And characters that I would potentially move up from this tier would be Ice Climbers and Meta Knight. Ice Climbers is a bit of a weird one because half the time they're the best character in the game, half the time they're the worst character in the game. It really does depend who your opponent is playing, so that would technically kind of average out to the middle in my opinion, so I'd put them somewhere in the high tier, because even though this says mid tier, this is still like the bottom 60 characters in this game. And then for Meta Knight, this character pretty much does not have a disadvantage state because he has one, so many jumps, two, infinite dimensional cape, not infinite dimensional cape, but dimensional cape in general is very good. It just kind of allows you to skip the ledge phase because you have that 50-50 of I'm going to swing or I'm not going to swing, and you also have to be correct as the opponent to guess where Meta Knight is going to land with the dimensional cape. Like, he can just go back to the ledge, he can go up to the platform, he can go next to you, behind you. There's just so much variety with that, and the character's damage output is extremely good, so I would move up Meta Knight to honestly the bottom of the high plus tier. Moving on to the lower half of high tier. Now, I think people are going to generally disagree with this tier, but honestly, I think it's pretty good. The only character that I have an issue with is going to be Mega Man. I think Mega Man is way too low. I would move him up somewhere toward the bottom of the top tier. His neutral is weird, but it's a good neutral in my opinion. And if you do manage to break Mega Man's zone, he has some incredible boxing options, plus Leaf Shield. Leaf Shield is such a broken move, and people don't talk about it. Like, I know it got nerfed, but it is still ridiculous. And the kill confirms that you have with Metal Blade are absurd. You can steal stocks at very early percent. He has amazing edge guarding. It's kind of like worse Sonic edge guarding because his back air doesn't linger as long as forward air, and Spring, or rather Rush, doesn't have a hitbox, but it's effectively still accomplishing the same thing where you can cover both high and low at the same time. And I just think Mega Man is pretty underrated here. So there's a couple characters in this high tier that I think are fine, but I don't know if the general public would agree. And the first one is going to be Chrom. I've been seeing people put Chrom at the bottom of mid tier, sometimes even low tier, because this character's recovery is god awful, arguably the worst in the game. He's probably going to die the second he goes off stage, but his advantage state and his neutral and his kill confirms are phenomenal. A character with Chrom jab and Chrom back air cannot be in the low tier. I absolutely refuse. So I think this Chrom placement is honestly fine. And the other two characters are going to be Toon Link and Rosalina. Toon Link has been very interesting lately because I feel like he's just slowly rising in the meta. I personally don't see it yet. I just think he gets outdamaged and outclassed by a lot of characters, and he has some solid options, don't get me wrong, but are they more solid than the characters above him? I don't necessarily think so. And then the other one is going to be Rosalina. People have been very high on Rosalina lately, and I can't really blame them because DeBus has been doing some pretty incredible things. But I think the fact that once you lose Luma, you become a significantly weaker character is really bad for Rosalina. And also, I think this character is fairly exploitable off stage. She does have a lot of stalling potential, but if people just wait for Rosalina to actually up B and react to that when they're edge guarding and they have a lingering hitbox, it is a very hard time for this character to come back. And there's also a lot of scenarios where you're hitting Rosalina and you can also just swat Luma off the stage. Like if Rosa has Luma on the ledge, oftentimes Luma is not making it back to center. So I think this placement for Rosalina is absolutely fine. Moving on to the high plus tier, the first character I gotta highlight is going to be Mii Brawler. I think he is way too low. I would put him somewhere at the top of this top minus tier, maybe even the bottom of this top plus tier. He just has so many ways where he could just steal your stock. If Mii Brawler is near a platform and you are at any percent, your life is in danger. And then also the character just has really good stats. He's basically just a beta Fox, except Fox can kill you off of grab now. And Mii Brawler is just so broken. The most underutilized character in the entire game, in my opinion. The next character that I want to highlight is right next to Mii Brawler, and that is going to be Shulk. And he's a bit of a weird one on tier list, because if you believe in Shulk theory, characters top 10, Monado Arts are broken, one of the best in the game. If you don't believe in the Shulk theory, he's probably somewhere around here, and even if you don't believe in Shulk, Monado Arts are still very good, but I feel like 90% of the characters in this game can utilize Monado Arts way better than Shulk does, and I personally agree with this placement from SISQUI. If you don't, you think this is a terrible tier list, why is Shulk down there? Shulk's top 5, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to argue with you on that one, because you could really put him anywhere, and it's honestly fine in my opinion. The next character I want to highlight is right next to Shulk, and that is going to be Inkling. Inkling and Palutena suffer from a similar issue where they have good onstage game, good neutral, everything about the character is just good, but when it comes to getting the kill, they can struggle. The difference between Palutena and Inkling is Palutena is a broken top tier with some of the best aerials in the game and some crazy kill options, and Inkling is a bad character. I wouldn't put Inkling in the mid tier necessarily, but somewhere on the lower end of this high tier. She really has like 4 ways she can kill you. One of them is Booyah, which is at very, very specific percents, and if you are aware of your character's Booyah percents, you could just play an aerial-based game, and oh, I got back aired, I'm not in Booyah anymore, hooray. The other one is going to be Roller. If you're getting hit by Roller in 2023, almost 2024, you are probably going to lose anyway. Then you just, of course, have your smash attacks, and she does have some pretty solid smash attacks, but nothing crazy, and the final one is going to be her edge guarding, and Inkling edge guarding is good, but you have to be very precise. With back air, for example, the hitbox on it is very small, it's very quick, but you're not going to be able to just throw that thing out there and intercept people's recoveries. You can kind of do that with forward air, but it's not the best example of a lingering hitbox. And if characters have a half decent recovery, even if they get swatted 1 or 2 times by Inkling, they're probably still going to make it back anyway. And I think the character is solid in the neutral. They have some good combos. Jab is a ridiculous move, but when it comes to getting the kill, I just think they massively struggle, and I would move them down because of that. The last 2 characters I want to highlight in this high plus here are going to be Corrin and Pokemon Trainer. For Corrin, I'm not going to talk about her in this video just because I've spent so much time talking about Corrin recently because she's been having a little bit of a renaissance, but I will leave a link down below where I was talking about the Fire Emblem characters, and you can get a taste of my Corrin opinion there. But generally, I would put her somewhere at the higher end of this top minus tier, maybe the bottom of this top plus tier, but that feels like a little bit of a stretch. And then the final one is Pokemon Trainer. I just think Squirtle is such a ridiculous character. You should be playing Squirtle like 80% of the time, get your crazy combos, have your amazing neutral, and when you need to get the kill, you can just get it with Squirtle because he has a really good tech chase setups, and down smash is like such an absurd move. Or you could switch to Ivysaur or Charizard, and Charizard in a last stock, last hit scenario is probably the best character in the game. He has 3 ways to kill you off grab, he has up smash out of shield, every aerial that he has kills, it is just so insane. And then Ivysaur has some of the best cheese in this game, and when you combine that all into a character that can start with Squirtle, I just think PT is so good. Again, somewhere in the higher end of this top minus tier. Moving on to the bottom of top tier, and there's 3 characters I want to highlight right away, and that's going to be Luigi, Greninja, and Falco. I would move Luigi somewhere to the bottom of this high minus tier. I would move Falco somewhere to the bottom of this high plus tier. I would move Greninja, honestly, just to the top of this high plus tier because Tarek has made me see the light with his character, or I'm starting to see the light with his character, and that's probably what SISQUI sees. And for Luigi, I mean, he has to play versus Luigi, so I honestly can't blame him for this placement, and Falco is arguably Samus's worst matchup, so I can let all of these slide. I see where SISQUI's coming from. Editing proof plug, I just thought I should point out that Olimar is definitely Samus's worst matchup, and you can see a little bit of influence right there, but Falco is still really bad for the character. Also, I don't have a problem with this Ryu placement. I just wanted to highlight how far apart him and Ken are. Like, I think Ryu is better than Ken. I don't know if it's by this much, but I like the statement that it makes. And I really have no issues with the rest of this top minus tier. Like, I would move Pac-Man and Olimar around, but the rest I'm completely fine with. Moving on to the second half of the top tier, starting off with Bayonetta. Very good Bayo placement. I could honestly see this character being a little bit higher, but she is in the upper echelon of the game, and Europe of all regions definitely knows that because Bloom Forever has been very mean to them over there. And next character is Pikachu. I think Pikachu's way too low. I still have this character in my top 5, and I've talked about it in literally every single tier list video that I make because it seems like no one agrees with me, so I'm not going to talk about it too much here, but the keynotes are up B is broken, combo game is broken, edge guarding is broken. And I saw a couple people have problems with this Kazuya placement, but I honestly think it's really good. Kazuya is the best on-hit character in the game. He is right here, but every other aspect of this character is somewhere like this high minus tier, this mid tier, and I think this is honestly a correct placement, especially considering that a handful of these characters in this tier have true zero death combos or have 0 to 80% combos, and they're just killing you in the next conversion anyway. Kazuya's neutral is just so weak, especially, again, compared to these modern-day top tiers who all have broken neutral. It's really difficult for this character to keep up, and once he hits you, you're probably going to lose your stock, but he's got to hit you, you know? And aside from Pikachu, the only character that I would move into the top 10 would be Joker, and my reasoning for that is very simple. Gun is very broken, and he's still in the lower half of the top 10, so it's not like it's a significant move, but I definitely think he deserves to be up there. And Joker has been falling on a lot of people's tier lists recently, mainly because, one, very difficult character, and I can't really deny that, and two, people have gotten way better at playing against Arsene, specifically edgeguarding the character has been a massive struggle for Joker, but base Joker is still really solid, and when we're talking about Arsene, you have Arsene Gun. That is such a solid move. Arsene Gun makes your camping game so much stronger. You can get an incredible amount of chip damage, and the reason that you don't see a ton of Joker players just camping out with Arsene Gun is because Arsene's obviously on a timer. You want to approach, you want to make the most of it. But when you factor in the fact that you have Rebel's Guard, a counter move that gives you like half of your Arsene stock if you block a somewhat meaty move, and then you're just going to get the other Arsene from dealing damage or getting damage done to you, you can get like 3 or 4 Arsenes of stock, and then it's not that big of a deal if you're using your first 2 Arsenes to just get some chip damage with Gun. You get 70-80% when you finally do get that meaningful hit with normal Joker or with Arsene Joker, the opponent is just going to explode. I really think that the future of Joker is entirely centralized around Gun and using Arsene Gun to the maximum of your ability. Like, the reason that Leo's Joker is so good is because he gets so many Arsenes because his usage of Rebel's Guard is really strong, and if Joker players can follow in his suit, like, you take Leo's Rebel's Guard usage and Joker players' gun usage, like Tsubaki, for example, and you have the best character in the game. And the only characters that I would move out of this top 20 would be Mario and Roy, and this really isn't to the fault of Mario and Roy. They are very good characters, and I think having them here is still a little bit high, especially for Mario, but I can understand the reasoning behind it. I just value other characters more. Like, I would probably have Pac-Man, Samus, Wario, maybe Corrin in this top 20 over characters like Mario and Roy, so I would bump them out. On to the top 10, and the first character in this top 10 is going to be Snake. This is true. I could even see Snake being a little bit higher. That character is ridiculous. The next one is going to be Peach. I personally don't have Peach in my top 10, but she's still in my top 15, and honestly, it's the exact same thing with Fox. I don't think either of these characters are top 10, but I know the reasons that they are in this top 10. They have amazing damage output. Float is a broken mechanic. Fox is some of the best pressure in the game, but Peach is still a slow character and a little bit stubby, and you have to do a lot of micro spacing to make her work, and then Fox, he sometimes just explodes at 40, so that's why I don't have them in my top 10, and the only character that I would actually massively change in this top 10 would be Palutena. As I mentioned earlier on, she is very linear when it comes to getting the kill, and you have to be super creative. Like, you look at Luis, for example, the smash attacks that guy throws out are super good, but you have to make some very hard reads to be able to get them, and Palutena's late game is just kind of evolving into, I know how you want to kill me, what are you going to do to surprise me? And when you look at the top tiers around her, like Game & Watch Rob, Snake, for example, they really don't have to worry about that, so she's still in this top plus tier, in my opinion, towards the lower end of the top plus tier, but not top 10. Now, I'm guessing the main issue people had with this tier list is that Sora in top 6, but to be honest, I think Sora's really good. He's top 15 minimum, in my opinion, and I like the narrative that SISQUI's pushing here, so I'm not even going to touch that one. Great Sora placement. Aegis is going to be our first character in the top 5. I don't have Aegis in my top 5 just because that character's recovery is such a massive flaw, but she's still in my top 10, so I'm not going to make too big of a fuss about it. And our top 4 characters in the game are going to be Game & Watch in 4th. I would have Game & Watch in 3rd. I would have Rob in 5th, and then 4th I would have Pikachu, but Sonic and Steve being the top 2 characters in the game, I think this is kind of unanimous at this point. These characters characters are very, very good. And overall, I was a really big fan of this tier list from SISQUI. He had a couple weird placements, but most of his weird placements I actually agreed with, so we were just thinking on the same way. Like, maybe I'm a European at heart, who knows? But I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. The support has been absolutely unreal as of late. If your favorite character got left out and you disagree with their placement, there's anything I said wrong, or if you just want to say hi, leave a comment down below. Be sure to sub, and I'll see you all in the next one. Also, I don't know if I mentioned this, but go follow SISQUI. His links will all be down below. Anyway, bye-bye!